So the site, as you said, is just north of Campbell High School, which is there. The site is bounded. You can see the walking trail through there, but it's linking Ainslie Village to Ainslie Avenue. The boundary of the site is just south of that, and sort of follows a curve up here. And there's a little triangle portion which is cut out of the site just there. So on there at the moment is the ex-Siro building. We have moved to parts of Black Mountain. In the building at the moment, the building is vacant. We've had some thieves in there stealing the roofs, but outside of that, the building is missing and vacant. We bought this site last, well, Mike, flip to the next slide actually. Let's do the Rob's presentation. What we're doing tonight is showing you the first round of the draft master plan. The master plan was required as part of the DCP that was approved by the NCA earlier this year. So we bought the site in the middle of the year after the DCP was approved. So what we're doing now is looking for the DCP, putting a master plan together, which is what the DCP requires us to do. We're going through a consultation on that and then watching new master plan from the NCA. There may be some other DCP amendments as we work through this, but essentially we're starting within the bounds largely what's been approved already. So next slide. So again, just a site, that's us there. We've got open land there which is owned by the territory. There's a bit of confusion about who owns the leases here. Ainslie Village is owned by the ACT government, leased by Argyle Housing on behalf of the Community Services Directorate. Campbell High School behind us, War Memorial, and the Kills. We're seeing there's a bit of government housing here as well as private housing there. You flip to the next one, Mike? It's too big for me. Rob's got a bit of history with this site. As I said, we only came in the middle of this year, so you might want to present.
Yeah, I think in racing terms you could say the site has form. Because about 3 years ago we made a presentation on behalf of the previous owner to not only the Campbell Community Council but to the school, to the hotel, to adjacent residents, the War Memorial, Community Services, their housing stock, and the village. That was for a more substantial development than what we're about to show you. So in that sense, the proposal today is a slimmed down version which has had actually the benefit of not only comments that have been made on the previous scheme, but you will recall that earlier this year, late last year and earlier this year, the National Capital Authority put out for public comment what's called a Development Control Plan, a DCP, and that elicited a variety of comments from council, from the school, from residents in the surrounding area. And so there's a lot of comment that we've been able to look at over a period of time and absorb and take into account in the new master planning process. Important to realise that the site is national land, and any development that's proposed for the site will be the subject of approval by the National Capital Authority. So they are the consent authority, not the ACT Environment Planning or ACT, as you probably know. It gets called by other names as well. ACT will do it tonight. So the process that Yuri is now going through is he's commissioned an initial site master planning study and has endorsed Stewart Architecture, Colin Stewart, probably familiar with. His team are now working to Yuri on a concept master plan. What we're talking to you tonight is about the concept master plan, about the possibility of some minor amendments to the existing development control plan, and the process by which an idea for this site has to go, the planning process that we have to go through to get to the point before any development can occur on the site. So in the first instance, and we'll talk about it in more detail in a moment, first instance it's an initial round, this is an initial round of pre-lodgement discussions with stakeholders and other interested parties. If we could have the next slide, thanks. So, if you go back and ask what's the rationale for the project, do you want to talk to this?
Yeah, I was going to say, with the DCP at the moment, we're allowed to do 60,000 metres of space, which is quite large. Within that, there's the allowance you can do a 12,000 metre office. There's also an existing office buildings on the site. We don't see there's any demand for the existing building. We don't see any demand for 12,000 metres of office. So we've got rid of the office entirely. We are looking at a straight residential precinct. We did have a look at childcare in there, and it has its own problems, one of which the DCP doesn't know. But we've also looked at sort of small-scale cafe and retail, but we don't have the scale to actually make that viable. So discounting office and non-residential opportunities, it is just a residential precinct, which is probably appropriate. Canberra City just down the road, and really not a very big site in the scheme of things from the top of the view. So what we're looking instead of doing is, it's quite a large site, it's just under 4 hectares. It gives us the opportunity to downscale the size of this, develop it a little bit. The concept, I suppose, of this dual architecture is very much buildings in a park setting, a landscape setting, and we've reduced the density in parts of the site and maintained the density in other parts to give a bit of balance. Go to the next ones. So we've got, talk about some of the features of the site. We're close to the city centre. There's a fair bit of slope going down to the limestone that then flattens up as it approaches Mount Ainslie. I don't know if anyone's walked up there. There's Campbell High School is on the south side. Their playing fields are just to the south of us, and the DCP talks about having some overshadowing limitations on the school grounds, so we can't shadow between 1 and 3. To the north of us, we've had meetings with the Department of Environment already. There's Golden Sunmoth, natural timber grasslands, as well as some Rory Sunway, which is a plant just to the north of the site. They're quite concerned about the additional residential population on the site, walking or riding their bikes across that area. So they're actually looking for us to prevent access onto that area as following our first meeting with them. We have some natural timber grasslands and Golden Sunmoth on the site as well, so we're working with the Department of Environment on that. Which I think is referred to in the DCP as well. So that's another process we have to go through with the federal government to get through.
That process has started, and in itself, it's a Commonwealth Department of Environment, Energy and Environment now, and that process has started. It will run in parallel to any master planning work on the site, and the EPBC process is also subject to public notification. So I think it'd be fair to say there's a lot of transparency in the planning process moving forward.
But you'll be able to do something environmentally sensitive areas anyway. That's
Sorry.
what I read.
Um,
You're looking to build on the environmentally sensitive areas anyway.
No, we're not actually. We're most of the land on which the development is proposed is not regarded as in any way environmentally sensitive. There is some degraded natural temperate grassland adjacent to the limestone avenue corridor. That's the bit that is noted as potentially having golden sunmoths, and we're out doing golden sunmoth counts and other fauna studies at present for about the 3rd time. But that has to be updated now because this is the golden
What
sunmoth.
about your grassland species?
Most of the grassland is actually on territory land, which is not part of the current site, or not part of the site, and that will be managed separately. I mean, the ACT government is managing it at present, but certainly the native temperate grassland on blocks 4 and 5 is substantially degraded, but we will nevertheless have to deal with that, and we're looking at things like an offset program which will provide that another site for that kind of for better quality natural temperate grassland and associated.
Why don't you just reseed it with the native grass mix, you see?
Well, it's technically possible to reseed it.
It's really it's not difficult, is it, Mike?
But
John,
no,
can
but the intent is to occupy part of that for development of the site. So yes, there will be development on a small area which is currently seen as native temperate grassland, but in our assessment, in the assessment of our ecologists, it's heavily degraded and there are opportunities to do something better elsewhere. So point taken.
To the east, if you've been up there, there's an ungazetted road that TCCS have identified as being problematic. They don't know when it was built. It was built to the lights there, but people use it. It's
It goes to the car park.
It goes to the car park.
And people use it as a rat pump.
Yeah, presumably the Commonwealth built it back on their own building before they sold it. Lyson Avenue to the west is a fair drop from the site. At the north side and the south side it comes up very level. We just dealt with environmental issues on the site, renovating buildings, so keep going on. So this is just really a rough summary of the issues, or what's around the site, more than anything which we just spoke about. There's that improvement up there. It's not quite as straight as that shows, I don't think. So go to the next one.
So how many stories is that approximately high?
Well, we'll get there.
We'll come on to that.
Oh, that one goes to six. The existing building goes to 617.
I'm just worried about the War Memorial and the Town High School on the side of the hill, so to speak, stand like the proverbial.
Yeah, I guess we've brought this with improved DCP. The DCP permits height, so we're not revisiting height in terms of being forced to go lower. We're nominating areas that we're going lower, but the NCA's already run through this once and has approved the heights.
And what is the height?
Maximum height 617. So we'll get there.
We've got a plan that shows an indicative layout with some building heights in it, so we can answer that question in a moment.
Yeah, so maximum gross floor area at the moment in the DCP is 60,000 metres. The modelling we've got at the moment, we've got a number of different versions of the scheme. The scheme that we've got tonight is a touch over 50,000, so just under 10,000 less. The building heights we just touched on. There's two building height controls, or possibly three depending on the way you look at it. There's a control at the front of the site, so that the site, the building built to the front doesn't overshadow some of the houses in red, or the first blocks in red. You've got some shadow heights or shadow controls to the school between 9 and 3 p.m. And then you've got an absolute height of 617 you can't exceed in the plant. Boundary setbacks, there's setbacks that propose 20 metres to the south, 15 metres to the west and 10 metres to the north. Minor incursions proposed there, I'll explain those a bit later. They're related to significant reduction in height. Off-site pedestrian access to schools, so one of the things in the DCP that came out of the community consultations, I think, on the DCP was the fact that there is a pedestrian connection maintained from Quick Street, or the Ainslie side, to Campbell High School, so the kids don't have to walk around. The way the land is formed or titled there, there's a fair bit of public land between ourselves and the village, so that will be maintained, and as part of our development, we'll just be building a footpath connecting through there. We're not too sure how that'll work, and what TCCS says about the existing road there, whether we're required to pull that up or how that works, I'm not sure. The key thing is we're not using that road, so we're not putting cars in there. We've got no need to go into Ainslie as far as we're concerned. We're producing those on the site. There's some controls around lighting, controls about landscape, community consultation, and then there's some technical studies we can carry out this week's land reports. That will be done as part of this process for this master plan. This starts showing this is the concept master plan that won the design comp. That's limestone avenue down there, as you can see. So the site sort of flares back into this point over here. What the
School is on the
school's on this
bottom
side.
side.
So the controls in the DCP, as I said, there's a 20 metre setback here, which is that setback, a 15 metre setback through here. 15 metre there and 10 metre through here. So what this master plan concept did was provide 100% with the DCP. So what we've got, and I guess the reason we favoured this one was Well, first it was compliant. Here we've got a 6 and 7-storey building, so 6 stories at the front, 7 to the rear, and that's all about the shadow that's thrown onto these houses across the limestone. Remember that this is actually quite a lot higher, so the shadow does actually go quite a bit that way, but even though limestone is quite large. These buildings here, then, what we liked about them is the fact that we actually are getting some good sun through into the courtyards, as well as that we're actually maximising the outlooks from all of the units. So there aren't too many units that don't have there aren't many units that have a poor outlook. Our pick is sort of that one is the worst one, but even that one has an outlook there and an outlook through here. So we like the fact that the view lines were maintained in all of them. You've got good solid access to pretty much all of them. And then what we do when we get back to this side, as the site flattens out, you can see the contours through there. We bring up our road over the top of the existing high voltage cable, which is on site, and we get to the flat portion of the site. That's where we introduce the townhouse topology. With the townhouses, we've gone for a non-traditional townhouse. These ones you can see, normally what you see is the garage, the double garage and then the townhouse. What we've actually done is introduced, it's not quite shown on this plan, there's a intermediary or subterranean road in there. We actually have the garages and the townhouse to come upstairs. So what we're able to do there is we'll either have provision for a lift or provision for a butler's lift in each of these townhouses. The idea being that if you don't mind stairs, you can buy it a lot cheaper. If you do mind stairs, well, there's capacity there and provision there that you can put a lift or some sort of device to get you upstairs easily. What that does is it gets the cars off the ground here and we get all the roads underneath, and gives us a better opportunity to present more green basically. Going on a few things we're resolving at the moment, and this is sort of an early development work on this as we speak. I mentioned the setbacks being challenged slightly. This 20-metre setback was designed for a building that went up to 617, and these are considerably lower, so we have talked to the NCCC about shifting these slightly backwards. These are private courtyards, or rear courtyards to these townhouses. The NCCC is comfortable with that because we've got, well, firstly there's less shadowing than bigger buildings, and the other thing the school is concerned about is overlooking. We're getting less overlooking with townhouses than the other apartment buildings.
Are they 2 or 3 bedroom townhouses?
They're typically going to be 3, but the reality is they can be 4 or 5. I mean, the beauty of having a lift, the way that the landforms work, our garage, our double garages, the double garages are actually a 4-car garage, just because we've got the space under it. So it's a 4-car garage with a room at the end, and the way the topography works on the site, we actually get that rear room actually has natural light to it with a courtyard, so you can actually have a 3rd bedroom or 2nd living space down the bottom. The key thing we wanted was a living space only on the ground floor, rather than typically we have to put a master bedroom and living, and it compromises both of them. This way we can actually put the master bedroom upstairs and have a flow-through living space with crossflow ventilation unobstructed. We also get access to the 2 courtyards to get their natural light. So it's just getting rid of the old townhouse typology actually opens up a lot of things for us, and this one actually lets us do a lot more than we usually do. What it then lets you do is, if a purchaser wants to, they can actually add a 3rd story to it. And that's just a matter of paying a touch more for it. We basically get them to, the way we design that is the 3rd story would go on the north side, so you just throw a shadow over your south top floor of your townhouse. If you did any more, once you get to that size, the townhouse is sitting around 300 square metres plus 4 cars, so it's getting quite large. We don't think anyone will go any more than that. The typical townhouse will be around the 180 to 220 square metres with a big garage.
If you look at the development as a whole, what it's saying is that it's catering for a range of accommodation needs, recognising that some of the people who will buy into this will be wanting to downsize from Campbell or inner north or even inner south, and but still maintain a presence in the area and those social connections. But it's on site, it's giving that variety of bedroom numbers and housing typologies. It's not just a residential estate with 1-bedroom units in it, and that's really important. And Yuri's comments about, as you can see there, the percentage of the site that's taken up with building footprint or road footprint is relatively small. The overall development density is relatively low. It's a little over 1:1 plot ratio.
That's what I'm looking for.
1.2 plot ratio, but it's that in an inner city location, in a Canberra location, for this scale of development is relatively low, and it allows for a much more substantial landscape, high quality landscape ground floor space, which is again an important part of not only market demand these days, but addressing some of the sustainable development issues.
So what we're looking at with,
Oh, sorry, just,
We need to wind up.
well, I just had a quick question on there. It says gates on the left there. Is that a gated community?
what we're looking at there is just working out how to, we've got, what we're looking at is a concierge service in there. So for deliveries, we want to try and get, what we're trying to do is get deliveries and garbage all working down this end of the site. We're looking at how we control that so we don't get people parking in from Civic up in these living spaces. So we need to work out a way to stop commuters going here and walking down to the 1.6. That's something we're still, there'll be a way to do it. We're not sure what it is, but the concept is we've got all these visitor spaces that will just be jammed with people from Watson to Newcastle.
Well, I guess
it
it
happens
happens already,
Yeah, anyway, it's something we've got to address. We're not exactly sure how it works. Conceptually, though, we've got to try and restrict who gets access to these visitor spaces, which we're going to do. Other things that we're trying to do, though, is using these setbacks here. Because this is quite flat here and it falls away quite sharply there, one of the things we liked about the Stewart Architecture Master Plan is the basement entries. These basements sort of tier on top of each other, and you can see there's quite a few basement entries. They're just marching up the site as the grade goes up the site, so we're coming in fairly level with them. It means we don't have big gaping ramps going into each of the buildings. We're actually coming in at grade to each of the basement levels. Same thing happens on this side of it. It's not as apparent in this drawing, unfortunately. There's a better drawing than this here. The NCA also wanted to see in the DCP an extension of the Mount Ainslie landscape painting. So it's very much Australian natives around the outside, but they're encouraging more deciduous and exotic and more suitable trees through the inside. So we've got controls that put those natives around the outside. The big thing with the site is down at this southern end, or sorry, the western end I should say, we are setting up effectively this whole ground floor here of this building is communal facilities for the residents on site. This is indicating a tennis court and pool and some outdoor areas. There's a health club there. Talked about the concierge with storage for whether it's groceries or pastry or whatever that will go in there, and then we've got some sort of community rooms which we haven't quite worked out what they are in that part of the building there. So the idea is that this does feel like a community. Everyone who lives here, again, we're promoting this as a sort of vehicular access. We're actually promoting these spines down here as the way that people can actually get on the site. This was not developed yet, obviously, but these platforms in the middle come in at grade onto the side, again, just using the stepping on the site. Similarly on this side, so we're actually getting people off to the sides and actually walking down through the site. And with WSUD, we're talking about potentially using that forward in the site to create some creeks and swales along the sides of the development to actually collect the water down here and use it. We do have this area here, which is the location predominantly of the natural timber grasslands of the Golden Sunlight. It does stretch down here a little bit, but as Rob said, it's quite degraded everywhere, but it's particularly degraded down here. And more a case of the previous owners just not mowing the lawn or anything. It's not managed.
Not mowing the lawn will actually enhance your native grasses considerably.
Yeah, that's what I meant. They didn't mow the lawn, which is why the grasses kept growing out. So it's not like the Barton Moth Park where it's actually probably maintained.
Not mowing enhances your grasses.
That's what I said, really, green, yeah. The Barton one's very well maintained. This was just been naturally left to spread, but most of it is up here. The Hoary Sunray is, I think, it's just the sun. The fortunate thing was that we're on the south of all this, so we don't have shadow of the moth or the natural grasslands. The rocks here, we're looking to, we don't know if it's one big rock or a lot of little rocks, but under the landscape, the concept plan we've got at the moment, what we want to try and do is, we're hoping it's a big rock, we'll just scrape away the dirt and expose a big rock and build a landscape playground around it somehow. There's rocks everywhere through the site, I should say, so the rocks are about a metre from the half below the ground, which is why it's important for us to terrace these up properly. The concept behind the landscape and the buildings is they should merge. So we've got a lot of terracing that happens here, where you've got sort of a full story here reduced into 0 stories there. And the idea is that we bring up the form up podium to all of the buildings, and the template we're using is looking at Three Boat Village, where you've got a stone setting to the base of the buildings and the buildings pop on top. So it becomes quite a unique architectural piece as well. I guess that the pitch of this whole site is it is just straight residential. We do a lot of mixed use. We haven't done a straight residential one for a long time at this scale.
When might this come on stream?
We've got a bit of a time thing afterwards. I'll maybe run through that. That's probably enough for this one.
Just a quick, the 8 stories, what was the height? Did you say 617?
RL 617.
Sorry?
RL 617, which is an absolute height of sea level, within which a 6 to 8 story development on the left-hand side of the site would fit. I mean, your average residential floor to ceiling is under 3 metres.
Yeah.
A better way to explain, 617 is the absolute height within Civic, and it's dictated by the height of the flag pole.
Yeah.
Okay.
So every building in Civic is regulated to that height.
Oh, okay.
And that's a
why the
requirement.
NCA.
It's going to be very cold, it's going to be 8 stories.
Yeah, because of all these.
No, this one's 8. So it's clearly this one's 8,
Yeah.
this one's 7, this one's 6, and we've got 7, 6, and 6. So they're capping out at 617. This one back here is at 604 at the front, 607 at the back, because of the fact that
6 and 7 story.
because of the fact that we can't show them houses down there. So there's very strict controls within the current DCP, and we're abiding by those. Obviously these ones could be a lot higher, but we'll pull those back entirely. And that's the big pullback. So
There's a mixture of building heights on the site, which to some extent reflect the topography.
So this is
the lowest buildings at the...
This is a fairly, sort of, pretty much covered all of this stuff. Look, we've said there's 500 dwellings, so I don't want to come back and say that there's more than what we've shown tonight. There's actually on that master plan, there's 457, I think it is. We're saying 500, it's going to be somewhere between 450 and 500.
It's like a mini suburb in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how many other, when's it coming on stream, and how many other buildings, or even apartments are expected to come on stream at that time? And between now and then, how many?
There's about 70,000 apartments in the control of developers' hands at the moment.
So it's enormous. Well, I can tell you, if you want to go and try and sell an apartment now, you're struggling. If you want to sell a house in Canberra,
That's our risk. We don't have to worry about that. Next one.
What's a community title thing, sir?
Our community titles, it's a way of titling the property. What we've got here is we don't want the body corporates to be unmanageable. So what will happen is the townhouses will be their own body corporate, because they'll have their own distinct issues that are different from the larger buildings. Similarly, the grouping of buildings on the north side are likely to be one body corporate. There's a second, there's a third, and we've got a fourth there. And what the community title does, it is an overarching title over the 4 or 5 body corporates that then regulate the common people. The idea there with all the landscape works, we have a coordinating body that everyone contributes to look after
The collection of small body corporates within an umbrella, but ultimately one common ownership, not subdivided into separate title. And there are a number of community title tenure developments in Canberra.
It's relatively new, but it's quite old in New South Wales. So next one. There's not much there we haven't talked about. Go to the next one.
It's just the entrance to Limestone Avenue. Are you planning any, like, have you got this, whether there's going to be lights or...
We've got a traffic report we're going to go through. Again, we've got, with the reduced density, there's going to be less of a load than last time, but we've still got to do the traffic report. It's quite important.
The National Capital Authority requires, as the next slide will show, National Capital Authority requires, amongst other things, a detailed traffic report. The difference between this scheme and the previous scheme is that the intention in this scheme is that all entry-exit vehicles will be onto Limestone Avenue,
Yeah, that's much.
not onto Quick Street.
Well,
or the
last time
adjustment.
you had a through road, which would just get clogged up with through traffic anyway, so,
That's the key difference
yeah.
between
Which is much
this
better,
scheme and
yeah.
last scheme. There won't be a public road through the site. There won't be a road through the site.
So what we're doing at the moment is we're looking to, back to timing, we're looking to get our master plan into the NCA before Christmas. The NCA will assess it from January and they're expecting to be ready for public comment in January and February, which I think it goes out for 6 weeks, which is on the
Yep.
Goes out for comment for 6 weeks and they expect to decide on about in the middle of next year. So we'll be looking to go on site in the second half of next year. So absolutely.
And the process that we have to go through is not only to get an approval for a master plan and any changes to the development control plan that you talked about, but then each part of the development as it is brought online has to get its own works approval. So we go through a master planning process to get approval. At the same time, we're running an EPBC approval process, both of which are public. Once both of those stages are signed off, there's then a process of staged development of the site. But one will come on stream at once. It'll be progressively developed, and each part of the development will be submitted to the National Capital Authority for what's called works approval, or the equivalent of development approval in the territory system. So, and what we're suggesting is that should the early stages of the project, the master planning, be approved, then we'd be ready for works approval of the first part of development by possibly the end of next year.
Which will be the first bit and which will be the last bit?
Yes,
we suspect the first bit. No, we suspect the first bit will be the Limestone Avenue part, just because we're common facilities.
I'm conscious of time, Yuri, so it's...
Oh, we're just about finished.
Yeah.
So we've talked about that.
Okay, so it's
Consultations we're up to right at the moment. We've dealt with that. I guess Rob's already talked about people who've seen before. People have to go and see again. Next one, yeah. What we're doing as well is we're timing wise, we've covered all the time apart from we're putting the demolition works application next month. The reason for that is some other person realised it's copper roofs on the building, so they actually nicked off the copper. And the other thing is asbestos in the building, so while we're taking copper out, insides and out deteriorating, asbestos is getting, well, not released, but keep getting released. We're worried more about over the Christmas period when kids get in. So we're putting a demolition application in December to the NCA, so they're happy with them, we're in the taking asbestos out now because we don't want people going this potentially with asbestos, so the asbestos being managed now, and then we'll get them to manage the rest of them over the start of next year. Hopefully we're done with others.
Okay, questions, Mark?
yeah, one of the things I remember from when you came to talk to us last time was that it was around the time when Labor was pushing quite hard for the high-speed rail. And the high-speed rail latest proposed route was directly through or under or adjacent to, I'm not quite sure exactly where it was.
It's adjacent to the current status of the light rail is the fast
Yeah.
high-speed train. Is a tunnel under Mount Ainslie,
Yeah.
which comes out in Ainslie Avenue,
Yeah.
north of this site. The proposed speed rail does not immediately impact on the site.
Is that like, I don't know, have you thought about that in terms of vibrations?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We're also thinking that the prospect of a fast rail linking Canberra via a tunnel under Mount Ainslie and popping up somewhere in the Canberra Centre or City Hill is not exactly in dreamland, but it's not seen as a highly likely proposition. But
I wouldn't say under this government, but if we get another Labor government, I wouldn't be surprised.
the point is that we've taken it into account, and we've had to make sure that this development could sit adjacent to a light rail.
In fact, I think the last time I was here, there was talk about buying some extra land from the LDA as well.
And we're not doing it.
Closer to that.
Yeah.
Any
By
other
the time it
questions?
comes through Mount Ainslie, if it comes through, it'll be slow. I wouldn't put your money on it. I wouldn't invest in it just now. But
Marianne, then Greg. So Marianne?
Yes, when you moved on track further, we really appreciate having accurate shadow diagrams. And I'd really prefer not to be exposed to too many artists' impressions, because I usually regard them as artist distortions. And another question is, I would really like to see such development achieve not just a national prize, but an international one for this
Okay.
kind of development.
Good.
And I think we should aim high. And just see,
Yeah.
because I don't think I've been overly impressed with this kind of development around, not, this is an unusual development, but I'm not overly impressed with the standard of apartment dwellings in Canberra. And it would be really nice for the ACT to actually achieve a really high level of architectural award.
We'll take that as comment.
It was comment.
In reality, what we're doing, which is one of the, we said there's some amendments we want to make to the DCP. One of them that I'm not very happy with is there's a requirement in the DCP at the moment to actually have consistent architecture for the site. And make it look like one precinct and all the buildings are quite similar, whereas we don't want to do that. We actually are looking to, in much the same way that we're in the master plan competition, we do actually want to run design competitions for each building, because we do want to get some diversity in the buildings so they each have their own identity. So the common marker will be of quality, to say that they've got a similar quality or a similar high quality, but we don't want the same building replicated 6 times up the hill. We do want diversity.
Okay, so how are you going to manage the ringmaster? Is there going to be a ringmaster?
In
A
terms of-
ringmaster, who's going to coordinate that?
Oh,
So that you
our-
get sympathetic development.
No,
all the
our
way
office
through.
does. We're experienced right now with working interstate. And the design competition path is actually quite well established in New South Wales. So the master plan we had for this, the street architecture one, was actually against a Sydney architect and another Canberra architect.
Oh, that'd be interesting to see.
So
But it's not going to be a series of 6 builders doing 6 different things. I mean, it's
Yeah.
being designed as and planned as a
Cohesive.
coordinated, coherent development, and with a very strong emphasis on landscape. And as you rightly point out, the design of the apartments is important, but also the mix of accommodation and the landscape surrounds are also really important in terms of just
the landscape,
local amenity.
the landscape on this one, running a landscape competition as well, design competition as well. So the landscape is important as the architecture as well.
Greg?
Yeah, sorry, more two curiosity questions. You're saying it's governed by NCA, but have you had any discussions about that dropping away from that control at any point in time into the future?
The Department of Finance administers the lease, and unfortunately, we'd actually probably prefer to work with ACPLA, because the Department of Finance is quite cumbersome with their administration of leases, but they want the money basically.
Okay. And sorry, the second part, just out of curiosity, the acquisition process from NCA, what was that? Was that actually a private treaty or private discussion, or was that a...
Oh, that was for Abacus, they're
Yeah.
a listed company, they went out to tender.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, but...
May.
okay. Yep.
But prior to that, it has been held in private ownership for a number of years. The previous owner, Abacus, had acquired the site from the Commonwealth when the Commonwealth was, I think, in the early 2000s or thereabout. That the Commonwealth sold the site with a tenant in place.
I worked with Babcock and Brown on
Yeah.
those 300 properties, so that's
Yeah.
that, okay.
So,
No worries.
this was a straight private
Yeah.
to-private acquisition.
Any other questions?
Just,
Jane, you have a question. Go, Jane.
Just a quick question. I know when Hotel Realm was developing that there were major contributions made to Tilapia in terms of fencing their side. Has the Campbell High School PNC sought any contributions of a similar nature?
Not this time around, because we are still setting up some meetings with the principal and, depending upon that, with the wider school community.
I should say the other that was the advantage of the change of use charge before. You had the flexibility to spend the money on the local infrastructure. What happens now with the lease variation charge, it gets, although with this one, the Commonwealth scheme, not the ACT, which is going back to your question, when the ACT charges LVC, it goes into a bucket, which is called the Community Infrastructure Improvement Program, or something along those lines, and a development in Campbell might see a playground being built in Purdon. And it's a fairly mean mechanism, I think, because where the development has an impact when it's not being spent, there's going to change of use charges to be able to spend money in the immediate neighbourhood.
Be nice if one day we catch up with New South Wales and create a nexus.
Exactly.
The school's the most important neighbour, with due respect. Whilst we got some distance with the school in terms of discussions with the previous master planning process, this time around it's going to be a bit more serious, and the intention is to sit down with the school as soon as they're available to talk through all of those issues. We have the benefit, as I said earlier, this time of knowing what some of those, or most of what those issues are. This scheme is a different scheme to the previous one, and I think will warrant a different kind of discussion.
One quick last one.
Yeah, you mentioned that you pretty much just doing straight residential. Considering this is on Limestone Avenue, which is a fairly busy road, and it's probably going to get more busy with the developments in Dixon and alterations to Northbourne Avenue. Have you considered putting something in community facilities, something that the school may be able to use as a buffer between the residential area and Limestone Avenue?
The school itself is a community facility, I suppose, so a pretty large one. I mean, the thing with this one is it's the topography of the site actually doesn't lend itself to effectively presenting itself to limestone. If you go past, there's quite a quick rise on the site, and you've got to blast away quite a bit of rock to get yourself back to limestone. So from a residential point of view, it's perfect because you're effectively on the first floor or the second floor relative to limestone avenue. But where it does flatten out is actually at the school grounds, so at the southwest side of our site. It sort of flattens out and meets the school, and which then leads to the school overall. But the community facilities in the school are quite extensive and quite a bit of land in them too. So if there was a need for more community facilities, you'd build them there. What we don't want to do, the worst thing with the residential or mixed use precinct is to have a token bit of mixed use. Because what happens then is you introduce all the complications that come with that, be it visitor parking, conflicts within the body corporate. You then all of a sudden have to introduce a different waste contractor. So you've got the AST government collecting residential waste and the private contractor having to collect the 1 bin a week from the community facility. You get daft solutions like that. So having a pure residential development just lets us keep it extremely simple and understandable.
There is a lot of residential development along Limestone Avenue.
Yeah, but that's not planned, that's an accident.
My uncle used to live in some of the early stuff back in the 1940s, and but this design, this building will be required to address noise standards, and so you'll get a design which certainly minimises any noise impact from Limestone Avenue. The fact that it's set back from Limestone Avenue, it's at a slightly higher level than Limestone Avenue, and it will have noise attenuation built into the design, will have to satisfy the guidelines for residential apartment buildings on adjacent to main roads.
You're going back to what you asked about in terms of community use. Why are you looking for community use?
Well, it was just something that I thought of, when you came to speak to us last year, which I hadn't, didn't have time to sort of fully think about it at the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're on a site which is next to a school. You've got other schools in the area. It's a small distance away from sort of the Canberra centre. But I don't know whether it's community use or whether it's sort of some sort of
we do have,
area.
I was going to say on site we do have a facility for the residents,
Yeah.
which is in the first floor next door.
Yeah, which sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, the store's got its own. The other thing to note as well is even that section 52, which is the one that was such old next to the campus. This is the old
ABC place.
Current Beaver, sorry. There's a requirement there, I think, there's 2.5 or 3,000 metres of community use mandate.
There is it's of that order. It's actually slightly higher. A community facility space at ground floor level.
Moved off the reservation,
Yeah.
guys.
Well, no, it picks up.
Yeah,
It picks up Paul's comments before about a multicultural facility in the city centre, and that's the place for it.
Yeah.
That's just linking. That's just linking your two sections together. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. This is very interesting, and I'm sure you will keep in touch with us. And no doubt you'll.
The intention is to keep you informed, and we appreciate the tight time frame that you guys have got, and our latest MLA.
Yes, well, thank you. You're stealing my thunder.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, guys.
And I'm going to break from standing orders and